me and my son was listening to you yesterday about the whole Andrew Tate thing, and I was in a domestic violence relationship way before Andrew Tate was a thing, and everything this man, I've been watching him, and everything this man says is exactly what my ex used to do to me. The way I was his property, things like that, and giving that platform is just allowing more men to be more brazen and come out and say, well, if he can do it, he's got a platform, I can do it. And I was talking to my son about it, and he was going, no, he's right, Mum, he's right. Men are weak if they cry. And I was like, how are you weak if you show feelings? How are you weak for crying? And he's like, and my son's 18, he's very quiet, he doesn't do much, he stays at home a lot, he's playing his computer, he has his girlfriend around, he's loving, he's caring. But he's starting to listen to this man. And it's like they say, it's a rabbit hole. This man should not be allowed a platform. This man should not be allowed to be talking to our youth, because our youth are our future.
Allow me, Emma. Allow me. Freedom of speech, Emma. It's freedom of speech. How dare you telling me what he can and cannot say? What do you say to that, Emma?
And it's fine. Everyone has freedom of speech, but that's not what he's doing. That's not what he's doing. He's telling people you are weak if you cry. That's not freedom of speech. That's not having an opinion. That's telling young boys you are not allowed to be weak. You are not allowed to do this. You must control your woman. You must do that. He sounds so much like my ex-partner all the time. I wasn't allowed to go out. I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. If I did, I'd get a backhand. I don't want my son going down that path. This was way before a man had a platform.
I've got two sort of avenues of questions here, if you will allow me.
Yes.
So the first one is, I'm assuming this ex-partner, when you met him, didn't say you're my property, that it changed.
No.
Right, so tell me about how it changed.
I'd say, I was very young. He was a childhood sweetheart. I was 15. It was all lovey-dovey and everything. And then all of a sudden, it just it happened very gradually without you even knowing. It was very, don't wear that. It doesn't look nice. Or, you don't need makeup. You're pretty without it. Or, don't hang around with her. She's not very nice. And then you start to do it yourself. You pull away yourself. It's brainwashing at its most. But because you're so in love, and I was so young, I just believed everything he said. So, it went on for many, many years. I had 3 children with him, and the only reason I was able to get away from him was because he actually went to prison in the end. Right. And I was able to get away from him, and luckily I've got brothers who do adore me, who actually stood in the way and said, no, you're not coming near her. And when he came out of prison, we was whisked away, and we never see him again.
Okay, can I now ask, if I may, about your 18-year-old and
yeah.
So because I'm thinking you everything you said so far, it's really powerful stuff. It's your lived experience. It's very powerful, and I'm imagining your boy will have grown up in a household with you there, with these clear, strong views from your lived experience. I can't understand why he's watching Andrew Tate. If he's watching Andrew Tate, then what help for every other boy out there? With TikTok, a mother like you.
It's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's Facebook. These people are giving this man a platform. This isn't a man going around saying, if you don't want to be like that, don't. He's not. He's saying, if you do this, you are weak. You are not a man. That's not freedom of speech. That's not an opinion. That's him telling men what they should and shouldn't be doing. I've got a 14-year-old as well. He thinks the man's ridiculous. He can't stand him. He's like, he's stupid, Mum. I don't like him. And I love that about it. But my eldest, he's from that generation where, I can't be a man. If I cry, I'm not a man. If I get upset, I'm not a man. If I show weakness, I'm not a man. Is all because...
Dear Lord. I can't believe these...
yesterday.
It's
having that effect already, and that's what I mean. And my son's he's not impressionable. He's not like a weak little 18-year-old who doesn't understand the world. He's grown up in a house, obviously, with me, and I'm very strong, I'm very independent, and I've always raised my children to be, like, have your own opinion, be who you are. That's fine. But he's now listening to this Andrew Tate, and we was listening to you yesterday on the way to shopping, and he was going, and I was saying, what do you think about that? And he was like, well, it's right, you can't cry, you're not a show emotion, you'll be weak. And I was like, why are you? And he got really upset with me because I was trying to say to him, of course you can be an emotion. He's like, no, it makes me weak, I'm not a man. And it really, really hurt me. And I thought, Emma, you've been grown up with me telling him be who you are, and now you've got this weasel of a man saying, don't do this because you won't be a man, don't do this because you won't be strong. And I was baffled by it. Stop giving this man a platform. He's a criminal. He's a criminal. I've been watching his videos, and he is a criminal.
What do you think about Poland saying, OK, every adult male, military training time? Do we need to take some kind of cue from that, do you think?
Absolutely good idea. Follow suit. I'll tell you for why.
Tell me.
We have high unemployment at the moment. I think the welfare budget is now 64 billion and climbing. There are people obviously who wouldn't, mental health illness and physical illness, obviously, they couldn't do it. But, younger people, I say younger people, 20 to 30, maybe to 35.
Yeah.
So many life skills they could learn. It's team building, it's life skills, it would be so good for them. And even people with mental health, because it's proven once you're out of work for 2 years, 3 years, some people even longer, it's harder to get into employment. And I really think it would be a good... they say we're paying a lot of money for welfare. Let's pay them a bit more and train them up. Let's give them some training.
I used to hide. I used to avoid. If I had to read things out, I would stammer. I would get nervous. I couldn't read the words, and then people laughed, and then I got more anxious. Yeah. And when I went through school, I did manage to scrape 5 GCSEs because I had to get 5 GCSEs to get to equestrian college, which is all I wanted to do was horses.
Yes.
But yeah, I just found everything very difficult. My parents, used to say, well, you never tried, and you were quite lazy at school, which I suppose that's how it presented. But I just genuinely, things just didn't make sense. Words didn't make sense. Numbers also. I'm very jealous of people who are really good with numbers because I'm not really good with either. But I left school. I ran my own equestrian business for quite a few years, and then I joined the fire service. I thought, you know what, I'm going to, and I got tested. And it was really, as the callers have said, it was really liberating to sort of know that actually I'm not stupid.
What's he up to, do you think?
Well, to be honest, the US has a debt to GDP ratio of 125%, I think, or 124%. So that needs to be addressed, obviously, straight away. Otherwise, your public services, your money as a taxpayer is going to get eaten away by that debt. So tariffs and everything like that, trying to bring business back to your economy to try and increase your GDP is one way of doing it. Otherwise, you've got to decrease that debt. Maybe put tax
But Aaron, just on that, you don't do that by sending your financial markets into freefall and crucifying businesses by putting massive tariffs on the goods they're trying to import.
That's true, but then if we want to dig out Donald Trump and we're not digging out the Chancellor Rachel Reeves for the same kind of thing that she's done to our economy, I find it quite laughable because we live in quite a bit of a fantasy world here.
Aaron,
we have no money as a country. We can't afford our public services. We keep taxing people at the bottom higher than we do the people at the top. So, when we talk about other countries and what they're doing, it's quite laughable.
But to be fair to Rachel Reeves, and I've been quite critical of some of her decisions, she hasn't launched a massive trade war with all of our closest allies within 2 months of taking office.
Because we ain't in a position to do that, are we? We're not one of the biggest economies in the world. I think they're number 1 or number 2 in the world with China.
But it's an unbelievably stupid thing to do, isn't it, Aaron?
I don't believe it's an unbelievably stupid thing to do because I believe in a few months' time, 6 to 8 months' time, as you know, things that you do now don't take effect right now.
But what is the effect going to be?
Sorry?
What is the plan? What is Donald Trump trying to achieve here? Because we have a professor of economics just tell us that he can't see any obvious strategy or benefit.
But he's not been voted in as a president, has he? So, if he doesn't see what's a clear strategy, that's why he's not employed at the moment by the government, isn't it?
But Aaron, what gives you so much confidence that Donald Trump has a strategy? Because none of us can see it. So either we're all completely blinkered and stupid.
Well, the strategy of tariffing people is so you bring business back to your own country instead of you outsourcing your product or manufacturing. You actually bring it back to America, forcing the hand of the other country where they've got their companies. At the end of the day, when you're in a position where your debt to GDP ratio is over 60% or 80%, you're in no position to talk. Literally, even Us ourselves, 101%. Every time you hear Keir Starmer go on TV telling us what you're going to do and how you're going to pay for it and everything, it's laughable. You're in no position to do that. And that's not down to him. That's down to previous governments, i.e. Labour and Conservative, completely letting down the taxpayer. And here we are again, picking up the bill.
What do I think that's going on, really? I think that Putin and Russia don't represent a realistic threat to Europe. Not at all.
Tell that to the Ukrainians.
That the credence.
Tell that to the Ukrainians.
I would. If Mr. Zelensky was around, I would tell him too.
You would tell him that his country being regularly attacked is not actually a threat.
Tom,
what are you talking about, man? They're literally sending drones to hit Ukrainian cities and kill Ukrainian people.
I didn't say he hadn't been attacked.
What do you mean they're not a threat?
Why? Because they're... Okay, Tom, this is why you need a history lesson.
Oh,
because
brilliant.
You do need to
Here we go. Oh, my God.
Where this came from.
If you don't mind, Graham, I'm all very happy to learn about it, but just don't patronise people when you're doing it.
I'm not patronising you. I'm really not.
You absolutely are.
Get Jeffrey Sachs on, listen to him, and understand what has been going on for the past, since 2009. Seriously, man, open your eyes. It's not
Graham, you're the one that's just come on the radio to say that Russia is no threat to Ukraine.
I don't think it's... No, I didn't say that at all. I did not say that at all. I said that Russia is not a threat to Greater Europe. And you're twisting my words, Tom.
Well,
and that's
it's
really
definitely a threat to Ukraine, isn't it? Which is why the defence companies are...
That wasn't what I said.
You did say that.
What I said.
You did say that.
No, I didn't. I said it's not a threat to Europe.
You said it's not a threat to Ukraine, and you tell Zelensky... You said you would tell Zelensky that that Russia isn't a threat to Ukraine.
I would tell Zelensky it wasn't a threat to Europe, is what I was saying.
Well, you're wrong. Of course you're wrong.
Well... Why is that? Why am I wrong?
Well, what is Ukraine if not in Europe? It is on the continent of Europe.
It's on the European continent.
Yes, exactly. Why does a political institution matter? It's on the European continent.
What happened with eastward expansion of NATO?
Well, countries have asked to join NATO.
In 2009. Do you know something? In 2009, Jeremy Corbyn was arguing to bring Russia into NATO. Do you think that maybe if we talked about things beforehand, maybe if we'd actually tried to normalise relations with Russia...
We had. Russia was in the G8. It was in the G8. It was round the table at the summit of the G8.
Do you remember what the reporting about Ukraine was before 2022, Tom?
Yes, I was involved in it.
What the country was, yeah.
In 2014, absolutely.
Do you remember what The Guardian used to write about it? Yeah. All of a sudden, it's the poster boy for democracy. You might want to think about why.
All right.
Back to culture. And back to where you'd be without it and why that persuades you that these creatives, these stars are right to oppose the untold damage of state school arts cuts. Susan's in Greenwich. That's two calls from Greenwich today. Susan, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello, Susan.
Well, I play the flute, and I've had a career playing the flute for, 50 years or more. I'm now a professor at the Royal College of Music and have been for 40 years, and a professor at Trinity Laban Conservatory of Music as well.
Wow.
And I just wanted to say my story is very similar to the lady who was the opera singer.
Really?
I came from a working class family. I went to state schools. Both my primary school and my secondary school were state schools. And in my primary school, the headmistress was absolutely passionate about the arts. We had string teachers, woodwind teachers, drama, a wonderful piano teacher who was the head of music there. And one day somebody came into the classroom and said, who would like to play the flute? And I put my hand up.
Did you have any musical experience prior to that? I bet you played the recorder.
I did play the recorder, you're right.
London's burning.
Absolutely. That's how you start with the woodwind instrument.
And when did you... Who was the first person to spot that you had a very special talent?
Well, I think it was my flute teacher, but actually my flute teacher was a clarinetist.
Okay.
And he was a wonderful musician, and we actually looked up the fingerings together. And then I tried to get into junior college, which is Junior Royal College.
Yeah.
And my piano playing wasn't quite up to it.
Right.
And then I was taken under the wing of the senior flute teacher at the Royal College, who taught me, and his wife taught me the piano for a year, free of charge, because my parents were were not well off.
Yes.
And so I have experienced not only support from my state schools, both of them, but tremendous kindness from teachers all along the way. And I eventually became principal flute of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And the first woman member, as it happened.
Oh, wow.
and I've had quite a diverse career, but I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet or flute or whatever.
No, yes, of course. You left that door wide open, didn't you, Susan? I didn't think you could play the trumpet.
No, we don't need to go through that door.
No, I hear you, but on this programme, there's very little room for modesty. But one thing that does intrigue me, and I don't want to lead you into uncomfortable territory, but how many people do you encounter now as a professor with a background similar to yours in sort of socio-economic terms?
Well, that's exactly what I was about to come to.
Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. We're on the same page. I've seen a huge decline in the number of British students who come to the colleges, and I have tried to offer workshops with young students that I have for the local state schools where I live, and when I ask the heads of the departments if they could invite a wind quintet or something to come and play the instruments for their children, they just don't have any money at all to do it.
Right.
And so it's very, very sad. And I think we are at a stage where there are a lot of very, very gifted young musicians out there who will never, ever have the support that they ought to have, or the education in the schools.
And I know I've got my own answers to this question, but what do we lose as a society, do you think, as a consequence of that?
Well, I mean, music enriches lives, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And not only for children who would like to take it up professionally, but it is mentally such a great discipline. And I've noticed with students who study music that they are much more they're grounded and very disciplined, and their schoolwork improves. I have a son who plays the cello, and as soon as he took up the cello, I felt that his schoolwork improved and that his whole, they're happy. It gives you great happiness playing music.
It does, yeah. Well, it's something I could never do, but both my girls can a bit, and I'm actually quite jealous because that space that you inhabit when you're playing music, different spaces when you're doing it in company or whether you're doing it alone, is a space that I think you can only access by being an actual player. You can't do it simply by listening. I mean, the beauty of listening, the places you can go when you're just listening are spectacular and special, but I'd love to be able to play.
Live and let live is a phrase that can be so positive but can be so negative as well.
Totally.
And it's an attitude that so many people have, that I will do whatever I want, and the benefit of that is that you can do whatever you want, so we'll just cancel each other out.
Well, the reason
people who don't think like that, who are cursed with the affliction of consideration. You said earlier, and I completely agree, I couldn't do it. I couldn't play music loudly.
I did it to make a point, but I felt sick doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't find any pleasure in it, certainly no comfort. But there are people who just seem to revel in it. And I'm not you probably can't tell, I'm not a perimenopausal woman, so it's not a Karen.
Do you know what I could tell? I could tell, Paul.
It could potentially be a Karen situation to some, but I'm a middle-aged bloke. I feel exactly the same way.
Karen is a terrible use of the word of the woman's name.
It is.
It's a misogynistic slur to use the word Karen.
It is, but it is that fear. It is that fear of, am I the only person? If I do this, if I challenge this person and cause a spectacle, will I be the one that's belittled and made to look stupid? Is it just me that finds this really, really unbearable and unfair?
But there is this trait, I think, and I don't know if it's a British trait particularly, but there is this trait that's really common whenever I challenge somebody about it. And again, you don't go in feet first. You say it nicely first time. That most people look like they want the ground to swallow them up. They don't want to see the challenge happen. They don't want to face the difficulty. So they feel anxious about it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which is why there's no point. Some people on Twitter said to me yesterday, What's it got to do with the train companies? Just deal with it yourself. And I just think, shall I clean the train as well?
Well, exactly.
Shall I drive the train as well? There are lines drawn where people have responsibility for things, and the train company has responsibility for broad, general conduct on the trains. We do as individuals, but some people haven't got any rules of conduct.
No, and not that they worked, but do you remember there used to be. There was a phase of quiet carriages, and that was the big thing, that as if everybody could sandwich into one carriage that was designated as a quiet carriage. It never really worked, but at least the intention was there. Now, I think they've done away with those. So, it like you say, it's just an invitation to behave that way. One other thing, before I go, it did make me laugh. Last week I was on a long train journey. A bit of an exception to this, really, but there was a gentleman who got on, and he was obviously one of your scruffy professor types, very clever, but hadn't dressed himself very well, carrying a briefcase, kind of person who nothing for that person will seem like a normal day. You could follow them round and everything about them would be amusing, but he got on and his phone rang. It was a packed carriage, and he had somebody next to him. We were all packed in like sardines, and his phone rang. And he answered it on speaker. And this lady, it turned out he was on his way to a conference, and this lady had rung him to interview him ahead of this conference. And I don't know what the conference was about, but it was something to do with protests and government. But he then went into this lady said, "Can you speak now?" And he said, "Well, I'm on a train, but yes, it should be okay." And she interviewed him for about 25 minutes. And the thing that made me laugh was
oh my God.
The thing that made me laugh was after 25 minutes, he said to her, "Oh yes, Sarah, between you and me, Sarah," and I felt like, "Are you taking between you and her and the 60 people in this carriage?"
Are you telling me you resisted the temptation to go, and the rest of us?
Because I felt so sorry for him, and in the end, he did say, "Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go because people are giving me the death stares." So he was slightly more conscious. I don't think it was that same kind of inconsideration, but it does make me laugh, and it makes me feel like crying.
Listen. I'm so sorry to laugh, Shaun.
No, it's like that.
That's exactly how I feel. It makes me laugh, but I feel like crying. It's exactly how I feel.